Okay, hi everyone. So yeah, everything is Gamzu Latova. Yes, the second half of the class never got recorded. Because everything is divine intervention. And in retrospect, it was actually amazing because I had a really embarrassing thing happen. I forgot that the second root, Ahav, appears not in our chapter, but in chapter 11. After, we finished the class, I opened up the concordance and looked it up. And sure enough, it is in chapter 11 when it, sort of does like a looking back on Shlomo's career, and it talks about the various women that he loved, right? Different, non-Jewish wives. And it mentions that he loved, foreign women and Bat Paro, right? She's like, separated. And all the commentators say because he loved her more than all the others. That's why she's singled out, because she is near and dear to his heart. So we're up to Remez, right? We were looking at the root Ahav that bookends Shlomo's career, right? That the biblical author, aka God, right, through his prophet Yirmiyahu, basically bookends Shlomo's career with the verb Ahav, right? It appears in the beginning in our chapter, Vayahav et Hashem, Lalechet b'darchei Hashem. And then at the end of his career, as a tremendous foil in contrast, Ahav Nashim Nochriot Vet Bat Paro. Now, the fascinating thing, this is a super important rule to remember, that Rashi teaches us in Bereshit Perek Dalid Pasuk Aleph. You guys can look up the Rashi on the Dibura Matchil Ve'adam Yada et Chava Ishto. It's interesting that in Perek Yud Aleph in Melachim, okay, I'm jumping back and forth between books. I need you guys to hold kop, as they say in Yiddish, to hold your head and not lose your head while we're jumping back and forth. Rashi in Bereshit teaches us a rule that's true for all of Tanakh. So that rule is that the verbs appear in different forms to show that they have a completely different function. It's not like Ahav and Vayehav is exactly the same word. Oh, he loved something or someone. Not at all. Rashi explains in Bereshit Perek Dalet Pasuk Aleph that when a verb appears, Ahav, Achal, right, in the simple form, then it's connoting that the verb that is described that way, it's a flashback, that it's in a completely different tense. So, on the flip side, when a verb appears in Tanakh as Vayochal, Vayomer, Vayehav, right, the Vaye and then the root, it means in real time. Like whatever verb is being described is happening right now in the story. So in Perek Gimel, Vayehav, Shlomo, et Hashem, etc., in real time, when he's a lad, right? But the interesting thing is that it says, V'shlomo ahav nashim nachriot, that it's not like it only happened in his old age, he became feeble-minded. But that the fact, it doesn't say Vayehav nashim nochriot, now that he's elderly and he's not so with it. No, Ve'ahav. Flashback, even when he was younger, he already fell in love with these women. And so this is another important point, that Chazal, when they say the drush, right, they hear criticism of Shlomo when it says Vayitchaten Shlomo, right, about Paro Vayikacheh Vayaviyeh, that he brings her to the home. In the beginning, it just seems like a straight up political alliance, right? Like really pragmatic. There's no way to have anything against him for that, right? And our sages are like, no, Shat, we're looking at the story holistically. We're not just looking myopically at chapter 3. It's like, wait, look at his entire career. Look at the way that the root appears here. The root appears, Ahav, to bookend his career. And that means that there's something inherently negative about this alliance with Bat Paro, because if it was just a political alliance, as they say in Hebrew, neto, like absolutely no other agenda, then we'd have nothing against this alliance. We can understand it. But the problem that Chazal end up really pointing at is saying that's not what happened. He didn't just marry her, pragmatically to give economic and political power to the Jewish people in the Middle East and to keep them secure and safe by forming an alliance with Egypt, but rather the problem was that at some point, Vayehav, there's personal like connection here, which immediately causes him to be subjective, right? It stops being an objective political alliance. So we're starting to see the synthesis, of the first three levels of Pardes, right? Pshat, straight up Pshat. I don't question for a second that the whole idea is a machlokes, whether it was David's idea before he died, whether it was Shlomo's idea. Because, the Malbim, for example, says straight up, it's Shlomo's idea to form this alliance. But I remember reading a midrash that it was one of the last things David did. David himself, already reaches out to Pharaoh before he dies and says, your daughter, my son, good idea. In order to further secure Shlomo's throne, which is what David is doing, like relentlessly before he dies. He's really trying to establish a secure throne for Shlomo. So according to Pshat, regardless of whose initiative it is, it's a good idea, political alliance. However, because we're talking about people are not robots. You don't just like punch in, some programming and just autopilot, run. The heart gets involved. And so that's what happened with Shlomo. So Chazal that's really the role of Drush, is to be the inner organs. It's not visible, right? Only the skin is visible. And yet, if someone's talking, you know that their heart is beating. You know that their lungs are working, even if, thank God, you don't see their heart and lungs. But you know that they're working because the person has a pulse and the person has color to their face. The blood stops flowing, the person becomes pale. So basically, Drush is the inner organs. It's what moves the whole story along, but it's not visible to the naked eye. And so Chazal are tapping into that poignantly, saying, listen carefully. There's something more to the story, right? And then when we get into, the later chapters, next chapters of the Shlomo story, and when Chazal say the whole construction of the Beit HaMikdash was delayed because Shlomo threw himself wholeheartedly into his relationship with Bat Paro and building her this like gorgeous palace, making sure she feels at home in Jerusalem. And he ends up neglecting to build the Beit HaMikdash because he's so in the throes of infatuation with her. And Remez is really that intermediate point that helps bridge the two worlds of Pshat and Drush, that the verbal cues of the Milah Mancha, of the flag word, is what clues us into what Chazal are tapping into, because they're not going to spoon feed us. They're not going to tell us. Okay, I hope that was clear. So next, just to throw another monkey wrench into the whole thing, Sod goes and just says, those first three, whatever. We have a completely different take. Thank you, Sod. What does Sod say? What do you mean? There's no criticism here whatsoever. In Shlomo's time, it was the apex of human rectification. Whatever we spoke about, David rectifying the sin of Adam and Chava, etc. Shlomo took it to the next level. And the metaphor that the Zohar uses to illustrate for us how profoundly Shlomo impacted humanity in a good way is all the days of Shlomo's reign, the moon was full. And we discussed it in the class, and it's just chaval. It's a shame that we don't have the footage. But basically, I'd asked you guys, what does it mean? What is this expression of full moon? And you guys said, oh, Malchus, right? And I asked you, when did the moon shrink? What does the moon symbolize? What is this? And so we spoke about that the moon is the feminine aspect, which means also reception, Malchus, right? You guys pointed out kingship. So the very entity of kingship is symbolized by the moon. So kingship is not taking power, it's not seizing power, but rather receiving power, right? A king could be a dictator where he just ruthlessly seizes power and just rules cruelly over the people. But a higher level of kingdom is when the king has the wholehearted support of the people, that he receives his power from the desire of the people to receive his orders. They are obedient, not because they're scared they're going to die or be executed or whatever, because they love his policies, because they respect and admire him, and that is why they desire him to rule over them and to influence them, right? Mashpia, to grace them with his bounty, his wisdom, his policies. And that we said at the beginning, right, in part one, is that's why David is so careful to tell Shlomo, follow my footsteps. Like, don't go and execute people. Don't throw your weight around. Rule over the people in a malchus manner, not in a netzach manner, a malchus manner, just like I waited for the tribes to come to me and say, please rule over us. We go on somebody from Saul's house, right? So too, want the people to want you. That's the ultimate malchus. And so, according to Sod, marrying Bat Paro is a classic example of Shlomo reaching this concept of a full moon, where there's nothing damaged or missing in the moon, right, which shrunk because of somehow a power struggle. And as you guys reminded me, right, beautifully, of the Midrash, when did the moon shrink itself, right? The Midrash says, metaphorically, the moon complained to God, saying, two kings can't share one crown. It's either me or him. Who's it going to be? And I had pointed out that our sages interpret this Midrash as the power struggle between Adam and Chava, right? The moon is feminine, sun is masculine, and that really, when Hashem created Adam and Eve, he wanted them to be equals, not the same, but to be equals and have mutual respect and to just be partners, to tag team it. Now again, being partners doesn't mean we both do the same thing, we both do the dishes, we both wash the floor. It's pretty inefficient because, like, if you're both doing the same thing, then nothing is getting done like other stuff. Whereas if, you know, one partner covers tasks 1 to 3 and partner B covers tasks 4 to 6, you get a heck of a lot done instead of both of you being on the hamster wheel doing the same thing. And so Chava says, but no, like, I want to be in charge. And I had asked, well, where do we see this, that she wants to be in charge? And I had pointed out that when she eats the fruit, and she says, no, I'm going to make him eat the fruit too. I'm not giving him room for discussion. Like, I'm going to lord over him. And so that's really part of what's underneath that midrash of the moon turning to God and saying two kings cannot rule with one crown. And what is God's response to the moon? Thank you for volunteering to shrink yourself. I appreciate that. And so he shrinks her, right? The moon becomes incomplete. Her full light cannot shine. And that's what happens with Chava. She has all this potential, all this light, and by wanting to rule over Adam, and she subverts the natural balance that Hashem had wanted to exist. And so Hashem says, now we're going to take the scenic route and educate you how to appreciate that balance. And how does he do that? After she eats the fruit and after he, you know, reads Adam and Chava and the snake their punishments or rather consequences. Basically says to Adam, you messed up with the earth and you're going to have to now toil hard to get your livelihood. For Chava he says, Elishech shukatech vehu yimsholtach, which means to your man will be your desire and he will rule over you. Now that's a curse. That's not the ideal at all. But that is the necessary punishment, educational tool to teach her to go back to the place of balance. Teach her to appreciate that, yes, two kings can rule with one crown if they work hand in hand instead of head-on collision. So, basically with Sod, Shlomo is a rectification of that, where he manages to harness the people's desire. Not only the people's desire we'll see, like just the Jewish people, but other people's desire as well, and to accept his ideas wholeheartedly. So the moon was full all the days of Shlomo. Sihara b'ashlamuta. That's what the Zohar says. So, okay, that's very nice. And you guys had asked, wait, so are we going to get to Chasidus too? We're going to get to that point of intersection? So I had pointed out the Dvorah one thing, other than the fact that, hi, we're running out of time, is that don't always expect us to get to that place of Chasidus in every unit that we're going to do in this class, because basically there's Hashgacha Pratis in that too. That in 25 years of teaching, I have discovered time and again how much Hashgacha Pratis is in every piece of Torah that you learn, in every piece of Torah that you teach, that there are certain Gemaras, Midrashim, Shat things, what have you, that I thought, I'm never going to understand this in this lifetime. Like, it's just impossible. It's so perplexing. It's so disturbing. I will never understand this. And then it's like, why do you think that? Like, hello, there's a lot of time. You're going to change. You're going to grow. And sure enough, at the moment when Hashem needed me to understand something, either for myself or whether to teach it, it doesn't matter, then it was revealed to me. And so I joked about, or I was serious, but it's like made a joke, that, when you lose something and there's all these segulas, either to say, the God of Rabbi Meir, and after you give tzedakah, and then all of a sudden it's supposed to be like, poof, suddenly that wallet, phone, glasses, whatever you lost, you can find. And there's a sentence that I was taught that I like a lot better, that is my motto in life, in every situation. It doesn't matter if I physically lost something or emotionally I feel lost. What I always say is everything is hidden till Hashem chooses to reveal it. Or there's a pasuk in Hebrew that they say that it's actually in Aramaic, that everyone is blind until Hashem opens their eyes. Kula al masuma, I don't remember the exact thing, but my daughter always says it because she learned it in Beis Yaakov. And so basically, in English, everything is hidden until Hashem chooses to reveal it. That's true for Torah. There are times where you're at right now, Hashem is like, it's not time for you to understand this. The whole David Batsheva thing, the whole this, it's not time now. But then when the time is right, either because you need to understand it, or be you just simply matured enough and now you're ready to understand it, or as a teacher, I notice that sometimes Hashem's like, no, you're going to be my shaliach, because you're going to have a young woman come into your class that needs to hear this. I'm allowing you to be the shaliach to convey this to her. So I'm going to let you understand this thing finally after 10 years of you feeling like you're smacking your head against the wall saying, I will never understand this. So that is also true. We have to just bear that in mind, that throughout all the classes, sometimes we're going to go through Pardes and just be like, okay, yeah, plenty of head-on collisions, thanks. Now what? And sometimes it's just like, okay, the process is valuable of going through the Pardes in and of itself. That's Limud Torah. Is trying to understand the pshat and the remez and the drash and the sod as much as possible, right? The process is even more valuable than the result, whether we get to the place of Chasidus or not, if we understand the punchline. So in this particular case, we did not get to the punchline, and I actually want to take this opportunity to, say what is the point of Chasidus, that point of reconciliation between all the levels of parties. I'm not going to do it fully because we'll get so much more out of it as we go through the prakim. But I'm just going to give you the little guiding light concept that's going to help us understand in finer detail all the stories we're going to encounter. So basically, it seems like these four things are not really reconcilable. So there's one important thing that is the spinal cord that binds all of these four elements together, and that is Shlomo's essence. One of the things we're going to discover, I think in Perek Dalet of Melachim, is that, if you guys were now on, Zoom with me, I would ask, what is Shlomo famous for? And you would all say, oh, Chacham Mikol Adam, the wisest man that ever lived. He was famous for his smart, for his wisdom. Now, in English, there's no way to translate it properly, right? Just being smart, being intelligent, whatever. What does it mean? That he would win Trivial Pursuit? No. In Hebrew, the word is chokhmah. He's not mevin mikol adam. He's not yodea mikol adam, right? He's not more understanding or more knowledgeable. He's chacham, which means wise. Chokhmah is wisdom. Now, for lack of a better word. But chokhmah is a concept, because it's one of the sefirot. It's a concept. And what chokhmah is, according to Kabbalah Chasidus, is it's the unified level of wisdom. Bina, for example, is analytical, detailed, smarts, intelligence, whatever word you want to use, right? Just like there's right brain, left brain, right? The two hemispheres. So, Kabbalah also talks about chokhmah, bina, right? And that das is the corpus callosum, is the tie that binds, that unifies them, right? That's why yada is connection, right? Because literally, it's the communication between the two. Yes, the throat is also das, but that's a whole other discussion. So chokhmah is that initial unified spark where you just grasp a concept without fully understanding why you grasp it. Bina is already the breaking down of things, like, why do I understand this? Oh, because of step A, B, C, D, that's how I understand why E equals MC squared, or why 1 + 1 is 2. So there's a 1, and this is a 1, and then plus means more, and then add another 1, and then equals. That's already Bina in motion, being able to transmit in a detailed fashion why you understood this concept. But that initial eureka moment, that's Chokhmah. Now, on the flip side, a person can move not only from chokhmah to bina, but from bina to chokhmah as well, where you understand a whole bunch of details. But then when you're able to find all the ties that bind and see how all of each individual element in Mendeleev's chart in chemistry there's some unifying factor for all molecules, this is what connected. And then you're able to use the information, right? Because you grasp on such a profound level, that's already chokhmah. So basically, Shlomo's essence is chacham. That's his default setting, which is why, what does he ask for in his dialogue with God, right? When he has the dream in Giv'on, God comes and says to him, what would you like? And he says, interestingly, he says, I want a heart that hears. Now, a heart automatically, dogmatically, right, in Tanakh and in Kabbalah, hyperlinks to Bina, right? There's many different reasons. The point is, and I'll try to find like a nice source to scan and put up in the Facebook group if you guys want to understand a little more about Lev, right? Lev, the heart, is Bina, and Moach is Chokhmah. And basically he's saying, I want my heart to be able to hear. And he talks about Lehavin, that he focuses very much on understanding Lehavin. And why? Because he's already Chokhmah. That's his default setting. That's his comfort zone. He's always finding the points of unity in things. That's how he is. And he's saying, but to be a leader, I need to be able to see the details. If I'm going to be a judge, I need to be able to see all the details of the defendant and the plaintiff, and see all the different people and see what the lawyer is saying, or the prosecutor. And I need to be able to see details correctly, wisely. And so he says, please, I want you to develop my bina. And another thing is that he basically focuses on bina. The Hasidic masters tell us, because he says all of this holy wisdom, this unified state, isn't accessible. Just like the sun, right? You have this light and it's out there and it's intense. It's not accessible until it's able to filter down into the world, and which in Chasidus and Kabbalah is called hishtalshalut, right? The gradual filtering down into the world. So there's a concept in Kabbalah and Chasidus about descent through the world, that something exists in Atzilus, which is the world of desire, of your wants. So even before something is a thought, you have that niggling feeling. Let's say sometimes it's even something silly. You're craving food. Before you even know that you're craving a food, you have this feeling. And it's powerful because it's so primal. It's so real. It's so from your soul. You just have this experience. And then the next level, before it can become an action that satisfies you, it has to go from Atzilus, desire, to the world of thought, which is the next world in the four worlds, right? Lama Bria is machshava. So you have to first formulate a thought. Whoa, I'm experiencing this energy burst. What the heck is this? Oh, I'm really craving a bag of Doritos. Oh, I'm craving food. And what is that food? I'm craving Doritos. Okay. And then next, sometimes it usually goes to the next world, which is Yetzirah, which is the world of speech, right? Further constriction of a person's desire, but to make it very tangible and yet actual. Because a thought, nobody knows what you're thinking until it becomes this air that comes out of your mouth. It passes through your vocal cords. It's so crazy. These pathetic little syllables that are so limited, they hold within them the entire world of your thought. Even the word thought or love. Love is 4 little letters, right? The real 4-letter word. But it's a tiny little word, tiny little syllable, 1 syllable, and encapsulates so many ideas within it. And so basically, speech. So again, to get the Doritos, it could be oh, honey, are you going to the Makolet anyway? Can you pick up some, Harif Doritos for me? Or whatever. Or it could be that you're hey, I'm going to grab my wallet and put my sneakers on, and I'm going to go to the Makolet, and I'm going to go buy those Doritos that I'm craving so badly. And then finally, it can go to the level of action, the lowest world. So this is the process of hishtalshalut, of gradual descent from the most abstract to the most concrete. And so basically, Chassidic masters say when Shlomo is asking lehavin, and for a heart that's rectified, he's saying, please help me. I don't know how by myself to move down from chokhmah. I'm so theoretical. I'm so in that place of unity. I don't know how to explain to somebody why 1 + 1 is 2. I just get it. Like, I don't understand why I understand trigonometry and all these things. I don't know how to explain it. Can you teach me how, or sort of rewire me so that I'm able to bring things down, so I can bring justice into the world, so I can bring Torah into the world, so I can cause your light to descend into the most concrete, in the most concrete fashion in this world. And so basically, given that Shlomo is unity, now all of these points connect. Because basically I heard this original concept I heard in a slightly different way from Professor, and I think now he's a professor. When I learned with him, he was just Rav Rice. But now he's, I think, Professor Shuki Rice from Herzog College, that he had said, according to Pshat, it seems that the reason Shlomo married all these Gentile women is because we understand that he reached a level of rectification. Just Al Pi Pshat, like you just look at the world he's living in. The Jewish people have it ideal in every sense, political, economic, socio, you name it. So he's saying, maybe I'm already the Mashiach, maybe it's time for me to elevate everything, to elevate the world. So I'm going to go marry all these Gentile women in order to be a light unto the nations. Or Lagoyim, that's it, this is the Messianic era, and I'm the Mashiach. I get to build a temple, he knew this. So maybe it's time for me to also just get rid of all the klipas and to elevate all of these different nations. So the interesting thing is the Hasidic masters explain it exactly that way, that he really felt that I have this power now to elevate everything, to do the final tikkun, except that it was a little bit premature. There was still many more things that, needed to happen. And because it was premature, so he basically ended up not being able to be mashpia, to be as influential as he had hoped. He thought that he could only influence without being influenced. But because he wasn't fully mature yet, he ended up becoming influenced. As we'll see in chapter 11, right? It talks about how his wives influenced him, right? That he ended up becoming mushba instead of being the sole mashpia. So basically, originally it was a political alliance, right? Alliance to unify not just Israel for very simple, pragmatic reasons. Part of a global vision of Or Lagoyim is now finally to be actualized. So let's marry Bat Paro. Let's marry the daughter of the main influencer of the generation. If Paro had YouTube, right? And then Remez clues us in that there's going to be more going on because Shlomo is not fully mature and ready to handle such a big task. And Chazal are picking up on that and saying, it's a great vision. It's not time yet. But so is saying, wait a second. So what? Do you know how much he accomplished? And this is an important point, and I'm going to end off with this. All of Shlomo's achievements, and we're going to go through right now, they were phenomenal achievements. His achievements don't go out the window because he messed up. The good that he did does not become nullified and canceled out because he also messed up in certain areas. Now, the reality is that's what we're going to do the next 7 chapters. We're going to be astounded by the amount of tikkunim and Or Lagoyim he was able to achieve. First of all, just the fact that he's able to build the Beis HaMikdash, Dayenu. Who else was able to literally create a dwelling place for God below in the physical world? To take rocks and wood and gold and physically build a house for God that lasted 410 years. Hashem had a dwelling place below that people could see and touch and go to for 410 years. So that alone gives Shlomo all the cred and clout that he needs. So whatever he might have done, okay, that doesn't nullify that. But more than that, when we do the other chapters, we'll see how much light he was able to spread and knowledge of God and appreciation of Torah. When we'll see the political leaders, the non-Jewish political leaders coming to Shlomo saying, teach me your God's wisdom. So that doesn't suddenly all get erased and deleted just because he also made mistakes. What a powerful lesson for all of us, huh? Seriously. The good that we do does not get erased just because we also mess up in tandem. So basically, Shlomo does. The Zohar is not lying. In his 40 years, there was a tikkun that was achieved. During those 40 years, were the seeds already being sown for decay, for a certain level of, mistakes and destruction? Yeah. But does that change the fact that the Beis HaMikdash stood for 410 years? No. And so, basically, I hope this was clear, that Shlomo marrying Bas Paro and all of the princesses that he marries, and again, the problem was that he broke halacha. Now, the interesting thing is that why did he break halacha? And we'll get to that midrash. You know what? I'm not going to say it now. I'll say it later in Perek Yud Aleph, but it just connects beautifully to Chochmah being his greatest strength and the source of his downfall, which is true for all of us, really. Every single one of us, our greatest strength also tends to be our greatest weakness, because it's so us that we lose our objectivity, right? It's like, no, but I am. Just like, the hippie type of person, wow, they're so loving, they're so accepting, and sometimes they don't put down borders when they should, and they could be in toxic relationships, or they can allow others to hurt their kids or people in their life because they're like, no, I'm not confrontational, I'm a pacifist. It's like, but there's a time and place for saying no, for saying until here. This is where my red lines are. Do not cross my lines. And so that's true for everybody. So Shlomo, his point of unity, of seeing that big picture, is what ended up leading to his downfall. But it doesn't erase the amazing good that he did. Okay, so next week is Ruth. I'm going to hopefully today in Facebook, I'm going to post the homework. So you guys could already start doing the homework in Megillat Ruth. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to go into the story of the two prostitutes. Brain teaser for you. You guys can email me when you guys figure it out. Why is the story of the two prostitutes chosen in light of what I said? You got to think abstractly and kind of extrapolate here. Why is the two prostitutes the story chosen to test Shlomo's wisdom, his chokhmah, his bina, like to test how truly rectified he is intellectually? Okay, a challenge thrown out. So yeah, I'm going to convert this, upload it to YouTube, and I'm going to send you guys the homework today in Facebook. And yeah, I'll see you guys on Sunday. Take care.